we're going to be talking about how to build, how to grow, how to run and manage a law firm. We have two really exceptional speakers and presenters. I'm going to be introducing one, and then I'm going to switch over to Sean Dominic, who will introduce the other. So I want to introduce Aaron Solomon, a Pulitzer Prize-nominated journalist, for his groundbreaking op-ed in The Independent exposing the NFL's race-norming policies. Aaron is the Chief Strategy Officer for AMPLIFY. He leverages his deep expertise to shape the future of legal marketing. He has taught, instructed, mentored, lectured just everywhere on entrepreneurship at McGill University and the University of Pennsylvania, and was honored as a Fast Case 50 recipient, which recognized him among the world's top legal innovators. Aaron has been featured in a number of outlets, including the New York Times, Fast Company, Fortune, Forbes, CBS, CSNBC, USA Today, ESPN, TechCrunch, BuzzFeed, and so many more. So, Aaron, we are really, really honored and privileged to have you here today, and I'm excited about the way in which we kick this off. So, welcome, Aaron, and I'm going to turn it over to Sean. If you would go ahead and make the introduction of Sam, please.
Great. Thanks, John. Good afternoon, everybody. I was thrilled when I was asked to introduce Sam Pond to you. He is the founder and managing partner of the Pond Hockey firm in Philadelphia. He has been a good friend of mine for many years. We do business together, and I can tell you that Sam is a perfect example of how to successfully transform and scale a legal practice in today's competitive market. And one of the things that I always try to do is not just partner up with people who are tremendous lawyers, but are also better people. And Sam is one of those folks that fits that to a T. He exemplifies the entrepreneurial lawyer. He has successfully adapted to the modern legal landscape, and you're going to hear about that. The Pond Hockey firm is going into the largest workers' compensation law firm in Pennsylvania, and in fact, one of the largest in the United States. And that's really a testament to how Sam treats the law firm as both as a legal practice and a thriving business enterprise. And he's really innovative in the things that he does, revolutionized how a modern law firm operates, cutting-edge marketing strategy, client communication systems to make sure that the clients know what it is that's happening, because we all hear what's the biggest complaint from clients is that they don't hear from us. His firm's rapid growth is really just a testament to the ability to identify the market that's out there, scale the operations, and create sustainable competitive advantages in what we know is an increasingly crowded workplace. For Sam, he's gotten so many recognitions, but one that I know that he is really most proud of is that in October of 2023, the Philadelphia Trial Lawyers Association honored him with the prestigious Justice Michael A. Musmano Award. And that Sam was the first workers' compensation attorney to receive that distinction. And the award is given annually to the person who best exemplifies the same high integrity, scholarship, imagination, concern, and courage for human rights as exhibited by the late Justice. And it really was an honor for which Sam was uniquely fit. So his holistic approach to firm culture and client service creates a winning environment that allows him to attract top legal talent while delivering exceptional results. So you'll hear today from someone who has successfully navigated the challenge of building a modern law firm in today's competitive landscape. So please join me in welcoming Sam Pond, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business innovator.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay, we're going to turn it over then to Sam and Aaron. Take it away. The floor is yours.
Sam, I'll start us off here. Our thesis today is very, very simple. The legal world has changed, and I know Sam's got a lot to say about this, so I'll kind of give him this gentle lead in. Law firms have to run as businesses more than ever. The best firms never lose signs of what make them great. Sam, you and I were talking at length yesterday about law firms running more as businesses. I have some ideas about that because part of what I do every day is help law firms grow and evolve their brands to where they want it to be. But you've got a lot of ideas as well. So when somebody says to you, law firms need to function more as businesses, what do you think about?
Well, I mean, I think about a host of issues. First of all, what do you know about business? Do you have financials? Do you have monthly reporting in regard to just the financial health of your business? Do you have a 1-year plan? Do you have a 3-year plan? Do you have a 5-year plan? One of the things that really amazes me is, and again, going back to Business Fundamentals 101 is, often I speak and I'll talk to an audience of trial lawyers and I'll say to them, what's your practice worth? Which seems to be a reasonable question because it's what they toil over, it's what they believe in, supposedly, it's their profession. And I get a lot of kind of bewildered looks as to, what do you mean by what it's worth? And I'm really talking about what is the financial worth of it. Now, the financial worth will often reflect some of the qualities, the culture, the values that you have, but what is it worth financially? How much is it, if someone was going to buy it, what would it be worth? And it really starts with whether or not you have a balance sheet. And in our business, the worth of a firm is, again, some of the qualities I just talked about, but really about the fact of the matter is that your balance sheet is about the assets that you have. And what are the main assets that a law firm has? Your inventory. And what are your liabilities? Your long-term liabilities are probably you have rent, do you have debt? Do you have other accounts payable? What do you have? Do you have accounts receivable in regard to the asset portion of it? When are they due? What's your cash flow? So there's a whole mosaic of things that I would prefer people to understand just simply from a business perspective. And if you don't, get someone around you that does. Have someone in your office. Look, we're pretty big, so we have the ability to have a CFO, but have someone around you to give that business advice so you have a financial foundation for which you can then go and decide where do you want to go with this practice.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. And it all comes down to the fact that great law firms, not only have a very strong sense of who they are in every way, including, as you say, the financials and all of the component parts of the business, but I think that the best law firms never lose sight of what makes them great. I think there's a couple elements to that. So the first one is the firm's values. And the second one is their mission. And the third is their brand. So let me just say a little bit from my perspective about brand. And then, Sam, I know you want to talk about some shifts that you've seen in the industry, but we have entered an era, whether we like it or not, and my thesis is that we actually should like it because it's going to be very good for a lot of firms, where your messaging is more important than ever. So what we do with our clients at Amplify and what we see the best firms in the country do with earned media and public relations has become more important than ever because it gives you a way to differentiate your brand and your message in the market. And by the way, I'm sure that everybody on the call is already thinking at this point, isn't that inflection point, isn't that shift part of the overall shift in the business and society? And we can't, extricate any of that from what's going on with AI, what's going on with all of the changes in Google, how results are coming up. And the last thing I'll say about this for now is the most important thing, the baseline for your brand and how you get perceived by the world is authenticity. I think, John, I'm curious for your opinion on this for a second. Hasn't it always been authenticity? I mean, you're, with a firm that is such a storied firm, and you've always had authentic messages that have come across to other lawyers you've worked with, to prospective clients. So hasn't it always been about authenticity? How did we, for so long, lose sight of the fact that the most important part of your law firm's brand was being authentic?
What a great point. Interesting, because in recent lecture presentations, I have told people, and I got this from a lawyer down in Miami who's a dear friend of mine, but I say authenticity is the first cousin of credibility.
I love that.
When you are authentic, you are credible. When you are genuine, you are credible. When you are real, you are credible. So in our cases, when you're in front of a jury, everything needs to be authentic, then your credibility level rises. Now, it's the same thing with a law firm. Just earlier this morning, I spoke with clients in another state, and I told them, I want you to write this down. These are new people who were just being introduced to us. I want you to write this down. Here's my cell number. Here's my email address. And I'm available 24/7 if anything comes up ever in the handling of your case. My take on that, Aaron, is that enhances the comfort or the comfortness of the client with us, meaning authenticity meeting credibility. And the answer is yes. Authenticity is everything, and it's about the subtleties and the nuances in the way we deal with people, in the way we handle our clients, our referral sources, our marketing, and everything. So yes, big believer in that. Authenticity is essential.
That's an awesome answer, John. Sam, I want to take it exactly from that point. So it used to be that the industry was basically, it was all reputational. Referrals were word of mouth. What people thought about firms, it was just what people were saying about you. And now we are living in the land of advertising. And of course, if we would have had this same webinar even 5 years ago, the types of advertising have multiplied. So Sam, could you tell us a little bit about your perspective on this shift?
Well, I want to go back. You're talking about really what at the core of what our duty is. We signed up. We are bound by rules of ethics and rules of professional responsibility. This is a profession. This is at the heart of our constitutional republic. This is serious stuff. So no matter how much you scale, and no matter how big you get, you can never lose the core foundation of being a lawyer and delivering on your responsibility to the client. We have something at Pond Hockey that we are one client at a time. And if we have 10,000 clients, it doesn't matter if we have 100 or 10,000. Each client will be treated the way we signed up from an ethical and professional responsibility to deliver to them and their families what we promised. End of story. If you take, we have a sign we have many, many things that remind us of what our mission is in our office. We have 3 pictures of catastrophically injured clients. It was done by a muralist out of London. It was called Torn Apart. It was one of our ad campaigns about lives being torn apart. And the other saying is a quote from someone that says, just take care of the client and everything else will take care of itself. That's not any rocket scientist stuff. This is common sense, but it's also what we signed up to do. So consequently, when we talk about the values and the mission and the purpose, and when you talk that way and people understand from top to bottom that that is the mission, and you can have all the advertising you want, but we're not going to in any way, shape, or form sell our brand or our values or what we swore to do. That is not for sale. And that will resonate through your ranks, and it will resonate as your reputation. Top to bottom. And John, very, very important. No matter how big you get in poly hockey, my wife knows that most restaurants we go to, I'm going to park the car and I'm going to get a call, and she's going to go in and say, it's Pond reservation and I'm on to call with the client. 24/7. That's what we signed up to do. And by the way, Aaron, get joy from that. Get joy from able to counsel someone. You have a great honor to give someone your counsel and direction to make them feel better and get a good night's sleep and have peace of mind. Think about how wonderful that is.
Listen, this is amazing. I got to give a very quick aside for everybody in the room. Part of the reason that we started Amplify is because we're as committed to these causes of justice in every single person that you serve as you are. Nothing actually makes me happier, and I'm sure that I've got team members on this call that are laughing right now, than when a client wakes me up in the middle of the night because there's an issue that they need some critical communication, critical public relations work on because something happened in their area of practice. And it can be something really narrow and really esoteric. And you know what? We're going to start on at 2 o'clock in the morning and we're going to be in the 5 a.m., 6 a.m. news cycle because that's what matters, not just to your firms, but that's what matters to your clients. That's what matters, that news cycle. And trust me, when we're talking about legal marketing, the difference between your message resonating and you perhaps getting a comparative and competitive advantage over somebody else can be minutes. I was going to say seconds, but as I was thinking about it, I'm like, that's a little bit dramatic, but it's minutes. It's not hours. So if there's something that needs to be in tomorrow morning's news cycle, when that news cycle begins, that's when it needs to happen. Because ultimately, as Sam said, by being in that news cycle with the message about whether it's a mass tort, a catastrophic injury, a defective product, whatever it is, it's going to serve not just your clients, but the generations of clients that you have coming after that. And that's something that I know everybody on this call kind of shares that commitment to.
And I think that's, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think that's very, very, we're going to talk about higher level marketing here and scaling and what that takes from a business perspective. But again, let's not lose track of individual client, individual service, making sure that those folks feel comfortable with that brand. You know, I'll give you a little anecdotal story. Last week, I saw my son writing, he's a lawyer in our office, writing it with a pen on paper. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, we referred a case out," and actually it was in Florida. We referred a case out to someone in Florida, and you know, they called and they said, well, they had this issue and that issue, and I calmed them down, and you know, my last name's Pond, and he said, "I'm writing them a handwritten note to let them know if they ever need anything," going back to what John said, "Here's my cell phone, call me, and we're here to make sure you get the best service." You know, that, let's not forget about those things that are extremely, extremely important that will give us joy in our profession. And then we can talk about these more scalable things that we'll do as we go forward.
Yeah, one thing what Sam is saying is so important, so vital, and it's about the joy of what we do. And the example he gave of heading into the restaurant with his wife. Sometimes we interview folks and they come to the office and they'll say, "Well, what does your firm have in the way of work-life balance?" I said, "We don't look at it that way. We look at it as work-life fulfillment." I can tell you that I started practicing law 51 years ago. And every day when I get up now, I'm more excited, more thrilled, can't wait to get started. I love being a lawyer, but I don't like work as a lawyer and then shut it down. And then it's family time, just like I don't shut down family to work. It's all a part of us. It all morphs together. And if you approach it correctly, it does. It brings joy to your life. Sam, I would be curious, when you get the question from someone you're interviewing to be a lawyer, perhaps a paralegal, and they say, well, what can I expect if I'm hired on at your firm in terms of work-life balance? How do you handle that? How do you respond?
John, you know, it's weird how the universe works. We had some clerks, their initiation day was yesterday. We have about 7 of them coming this summer. I don't even let that question happen. I diffuse it. I said, "Don't give me the work balance stuff. We're a profession here. You figure that out. But we're here as professionals, and we will do what we have to do to deliver for our clients." End of story. I can't believe you brought this up because it's part of my shtick. I don't let the question be asked. I get ahead of it.
I like that. That's what I'm going to start doing. That's the best way.
That's really great. So we've talked about a lot of this already, but um, I know that John and I, Sam, are curious. What prompted the firm to invest so heavily in your marketing, and how did you kind of avoid falling into a lot of the traps that are out there for legal marketing today? So can you kind of get a little bit more into the weeds about that for us?
Well, look, when I started out pre-computers, and it was all word of mouth. You had maybe one line in the yellow pages, but I was in courtroom in Pennsylvania workers' comp. Every case is tried in front of a judge. We have bench trials, and they're fully tried cases. You have experts, trial depositions, a lot of expert witnesses, but almost 50% of our cases go to decision. So, and it's a lucrative practice. But someone came in, was a big advertiser in Philly at that time, and had a couple work comp cases, and did okay. I thought I could do better, and I realized that unless I'm going to start advertising, the guy down the street is going to take, and I could be the greatest trial lawyer of all time, but unless I'm able to get cases, it really doesn't matter. I could be the greatest surgeon, but if I don't have anybody to operate on, then I'm not going to be much of a surgeon. So I realized I had to get into the advertising game, and we started it. And when we got into it, we just really did it, with a lot of intent, a lot of focus, a lot of planning, and it developed from there. But this is a very big, broad attack. We look at it as air, sea, and land. So, and when I say that, I'm talking about every vertical, every lever. You've got to explore each and every one of them. You've got to be in it for the long term. If you look at this, for our mindset, Aaron, is that, Jeff Bezos had a really tough time because he had to report to Wall Street as a public company about why they weren't seeing really large net income increases. And his response was, I'm just plowing everything back into the growth of this business. Polyhockey's approach is we are plowing our free cash flow. When I say free cash flow, another business term, I'm talking about our profits. A lot of our profits rate back into growing the firm. So we understand that it's on the long haul for marketing. To create a brand, a reputable brand with the messaging, is a long game plan. It is not a 6-month game plan and then you desert it. It is not a 1-year game plan and desert it. I always say, once you put up a billboard, you can never take it down because people are saying, why are they taking them down? So you've got to be in it for the long term. You've got to understand what you need in regard to financial tolerance, but you also need to start back and say, hey, if I'm going to go out in a case, what's that case cost me to get? And what's my return on that case? And if you believe in your business, if you believe in your clients, if you believe in your firm, you understand what that ROI is and how long it takes to get that ROI. And in our business, that ROI is a bell-shaped curve over probably 5 years in the personal injury space, depending on what kind of work you do and where you're at jurisdictionally. So you need to know these metrics before you start investing in advertising. And then you need to have them all come in, and you need to then build a brand, a reputable brand, authentic brand, that then will be a top of mind. So you want that brand to be top of mind. Look, folks, this area, our area of law is changing rapidly. This is not the internet and then play. AI is happening so quickly. The different levels is happening quickly. Google is changing. Google's trying to change in regard to search with AI. You're looking at different PPC campaigns. You can go on and on and on and on. But you've got to understand there's a lot going on, and you really need to immerse yourself and educate yourself as much as you would prepare in a case. But keep this in mind. The real hope is that in our multi-billion dollar space, no one has 5% of the market in the country. Nobody. So there is an opportunity for everyone to get their piece of the pie. But I'm going to tell you, unless you're mindful of marketing in this day and age and really put some effort and money into it, and then watch what you're doing in regard to the metrics of it, the KPIs, the key performance indexes. I'm really amazed when I talk to people about when they invest. There's not an appropriate team around you. You don't have a plan. You don't have an outlook. You don't have any data. How could you make any data if you were sailing a ship without any instruments? Where are you going? This is not, throw something and cross my fingers and hope something happens. You've got to be really focused, and you really have to be intentful about it.
One of the questions that I get all the time as someone who works with a legal marketing agency is, well, how do I compete against the Morgan and Morgans of the world? Because what Morgan and Morgan does, of course, is they do marketing at scale. And the answer for the vast majority of people on this call is not going to be that same air, land, and sea attack. Because there's two things I can tell you as someone who's done legal marketing for a long time. Legal marketing done well is quite expensive, but it's also a huge investment of your time and effort. Everybody that we work with at Amplify, I mean, you're rolling up your sleeves and working with us, because legal marketing done well is not going to be a turnkey thing that you give to your vendor and say, just go take care of it for us. Like, it really is a collaborative thing. So what I tell firms across the country all the time is, like, listen, as we get to know you and as we work on your strategic plan, there are things that we can do that can show the kind of firm you are, the amazing work that you do for your clients, how authentic you are, where you can compete in some ways against these firms that are doing marketing at scale. No, they're not going to be able to do the same air, land, and sea attack, but maybe what we do, using that analogy, is we get very hyper-focused on one piece of the air attack. Right? So if we think about it from the football context, it's like one play, one pass that we're going to get exceptionally good at. In some ways, we can get better at it than the firms like Morgan and Morgan that are doing marketing at scale. And that's where we're going to invest our time and our resources. And I've got to tell everybody on the call today, a fundamental piece of that has to be what I said in the beginning of the conversation, is how you portray your authenticity. And that is through earned media. One thing that I feel very comfortable saying, and I'd love to hear if this comes up in the questions later on, is every single firm on this call can be getting even more earned media than they're getting now. Earned media is by definition earned. And I guarantee, whether it's because there's not enough time, there's other things going on, we're not sure how to convey the message, there are amazing things going on in your firm right now that you haven't communicated to the world. And if you do, and you do it in the right way, you're going to be getting eyes and ears away from the people who are doing marketing at scale. John, you have any thoughts on that? Please.
Yeah, I just got to say something. I'm moving now on to page 2 of notes that I am taking just from listening, Aaron, to you and to you, Sam. Ideas you all are giving me, strategies, tactics. I mean, this is so helpful. I would be interested in knowing, Sam, in addition to marketing the firm, do you have the individual lawyers working on his or her own individual marketing plans, to where the lawyers have responsibilities to market themselves for the firm? How do you handle that with newer lawyers, with everybody in the firm?
Yeah, it's a good question, John. And it also ties into what Aaron just said about earned media, because, in our firm, we very much, again, for the audience, understand that just basic networking is very, very important. Have a lunch, have a breakfast, appear at events, participate, chat, do what you have to do, have your LinkedIn up and running. And John, yes, the question is yes. We have, because of our platform and our brand and the ability to have people maybe give us a little bit more attention, it is, you can leverage Pond hockey if you're an attorney here. So we want folks to be participating in the trial lawyers, but also what Aaron says, very, very important. Write an article. Legal periodicals are out there begging for us to write about articles. Write an article about whatever. Write an article about being a young lawyer and being in courtroom. Write about, the issue of, a particular. We have a number of issues that we hound on. We have a disfigurement scarring bill right now. We want the public to know about this. I asked the young lawyers, do you want to write about it? Yeah, they're going to write about it. Now, it may not get much PR, but it's been written up in the legal periodicals. In regard to punitive damages and penalties, reinforce the judges. Why are we having such a hard time calling adjusters? Write about it. Write about it. So speak. Yes, John, so important for folks to have their own individual brand within the umbrella of our brand. And that is another piece of all these levers. That brings in work to the firm. That brings in another client to the firm that has a neighbor, has a friend, has a family member. So yeah, it all adds up. It all adds up. And it's very much part of our values and our culture.
Is blogging still an important part of marketing for law firms? I hear the back and forth that blogging used to be, but not as much anymore. How do each of you feel about that? What is the benefit nowadays of blogging?
I don't think it has quite and Aaron may disagree with me or agree with me. It doesn't have as much of the panache, but you clearly want to have your website to have a lot of content. SEO is, again, earned media. It's free. And then even on your PPC campaigns with Google, the blogging provides content. It provides education. So it has value. I don't know if it has the kind of utility that it may have been perceived to have years ago, but I don't think there's any downside to it.
What's more important than anything is cadence. And this is one of those little legal marketing secrets that people don't talk about as much, but we do. We'll share it with you. So is a blog important? A blog can be important. A blog where you establish and maintain a good cadence, a certain number of posts, a certain style in which you write, so that you are being perceived by the algorithms as being authentic. And people who might want to read your blog know that you're going to blog once a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a month is very important. What I see so many lawyers do, whether it's their blog or social media or anything else, is somebody tells them, John, you need to start blogging. You need to have a blog on your website. And then they go nuts and they have 7 blog entries in the first 2 weeks. And then when we end up going in and doing some kind of legal marketing forensic, we see that they had 7 in the first 2 weeks. And then somebody wrote one 9 months later, and then nothing again until they came to us a year and a half after that. So blogging clearly didn't click because it became far too onerous and nobody knew what to write about. And somebody ultimately had the conversation, why are we blogging? And in that example, you shouldn't be blogging. So I think it really is a case-by-case thing, but I agree 100% with what Sam said about authentic, genuine content. And part of authentic and genuine means, by the way, it's your content. We can either later or in another webinar have a conversation about AI, but I want people to think about this. That Google and the algorithms and everything that's out there is going to give a lot more weight to things that you're writing and things that you're thinking about, and John sharing stories of his practice, and Sam and all of you, than stuff that's being created artificially, because we know what's real and we know what's not.
Well, I mean, again, this is so helpful. Tell me this as you look at the marketing that goes on in firms, and you see this around the country, what would each of you say is the number one blunder made by law firms in terms of a given law firm's marketing plan, assuming the law firm has a marketing plan? Aaron?
Here's mine, and I know people are going to roll their eyes. Again, we're a legal marketing firm. You dramatically underspend. We should be looking at a baseline minimum of investing 20% of your anticipated revenues in legal marketing. And again, legal marketing writ large, right? Because if you're not investing your money, your time, your efforts, your creativity in your legal marketing, if you feel that you're going to be able to invest a small fraction, but because your stories are more unique, your whatever is better and different, and we're the best firm, you're going to be competing against people who are equally great, better in some ways, not as good in some ways, but are investing 27% of their anticipated revenue because they know that working with folks like us at Amplify, that kind of investment is going to get them to the next level. So I'm honestly not saying this from a sales perspective at all. I'm just saying I see great firms dramatically underspend.
Okay. Sam, what would you say? Biggest blunder of law firms in marketing?
Well, it's hard to say one thing, but I'll say really no plan and no ability to execute the plan, and then no operational ability to execute the plan, and no belief in the plan. I can keep on going on, John. Let's just back up and say that some folks on this webinar are going to really commit to this finally. I think Aaron's baseline of 20% of your spend has to be committed. It could be 15%, but you then have to say, okay, what's the plan? Hey, John, you're going to spend 15% in 2025 of your revenues. 15% of your expenses are going to be, which is probably second to your payroll, is going to be spent on marketing. All right, what am I going to do with that? Where am I going to put it? What am I going to do to start creating a brand? And then next year, am I going to be committed to next year? And by the way, what's my return on that investment? How long will I get a return on that investment? Am I going to be patient to do it? Do I have the lawyers to execute on it? Can I service the clients? And then the next year, am I going to commit more than 15%? Or you have to at least 5 years out say I'm going to commit it. Pond Hockey has a 5-year plan. We understand what an increase in our marketing spend, which this year was 50% more than we spent last year. First, let me just from a business perspective, why would I say to my 2 equity partners, hey guys, you know what? Take more money out of the firm and go, and after tax money, go pay 50% on that, okay? We're not in Florida where there's no state tax, but so we almost climbed to 50%. But go ahead and get 50% of that, and then give it to someone and get 10%, or do this, Don't take as much money out because you have a nice car, you have a nice house, you have nice vacations, you can have a nice meal. How about this? Why don't you give the money back to the firm? Don't take it out of the firm and reinvest it in the firm. You're not paying any taxes on it. And by the way, we know through our data that over 5 years, you'll get a 500% return on that. And by the way, there's someone called Esquire Bank out there that understands how to collateralize law firms' inventories. That is the best. We have the best collateral in the free world. Personal injury firms have the best collateral in the free world because your cases, if you know how to try a case, you know that you're going to win or settle the majority of them, and that's the data you have to have. Esquire Bank knows that. And guess what? You're not selling cars that are subject to a macroeconomic condition. Good or bad, we survive. We're here to serve consumers. John, you've been doing it long enough to know that. So guess what, partners? Put the money back in, and you're going to get a greater return than you can get anywhere else. And it's before you have to pay taxes.
That is so important. I had a partner years ago who said the single greatest thing you can invest your money in is yourself and your law practice. And he said the 2 or 3 times when he tried to venture off to do other things, it was just a huge mistake because he knows he can trust what he's investing in when he's investing in himself and his own law firm. And that is just so important to go all in, put everything into it. And Sam, what a great point. That is so important.
John, the idea is not to take money out of the firm. The idea is to put money back into the firm and give it to someone like Aaron or someone else that is going to have your firm grow because you have a firm, you understand it, you're executing, you have a good culture, you have a good team, you believe in what you do, you're getting great joy out of what you're doing. put it back into your firm, put it back into yourself. You know what you have. You know we can do it. And you know what? You have to just continue to do that and then decide how much more money. It's about what you want. But folks, if you're listening to this, we can give you all the details of the recipe. But it's up to you to execute and believe you can do it, but you have to spend the money. You have to get the capital.
Because from my perspective, what gives a firm the kind of longevity in the legal industry that everybody on this call wants is nurturing and building that credible presence. It's a credible earned presence. So we always talk about things like earned media, but it's an earned presence. It's the presence out there that real humans like us are going to reward, because we're like, I keep hearing about this firm. I keep hearing about them. I really like the way they think. I really like their message. But it's also the machines that we're all working with every single day. Those machines writ large are also going to be rewarding that. And these are the firms that are going to do better as we move forward. Because the conversation is so great, and I know the three of us could talk literally about this for hours, and hopefully we will one day in Philadelphia or in Florida. I think that we should move forward a little bit and just give some final takeaways from our perspective, because I know we've got some questions and answers, and I don't want to deprive anybody, and I know John and Sam don't either, of the time to fire some questions at us. So John, thank you, first of all, very much for being our moderator today. Are there any things that you'd like to ask us, or any things you'd like to point out to the audience that we haven't had time to?
No, I think really we've covered a number of things that are just great. If I were ending with this, I would just say, especially to the young lawyers and more middle-aged lawyers, just you got to pound into your head marketing, 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 but make it fun, make it enjoyable. And as Sam was saying, there should be joy in your heart in what you're doing here. There are three ways to looking at what we do. Some people, they go to work for a law firm. It's a job. They want to show up, go to work, get a paycheck, go home and say, leave me alone. Another group of people look at it as a career. The lucky ones, it's a calling. It is a calling. And that way you have joy in your heart as you are practicing law. And you say, do you have joy in your heart every single day and every single minute? Joy? Yes. The happiness can go up and down. If you lose a case or you have a client who's upset with you, that's tough, and you deal with that, but you can deal with it in a good, strong, and joyful way. So to me, that's important, and that's the key way to approach your marketing.
Well said.
Sam?
No, I think on the last slide, well said, John. And you're right. The last slide about longevity is, we clearly also Aaron, you have to have a plan in regard to your team and, where this is going, if, beyond you, and make sure that, things are going to be there to deliver your brand and our holistic approach to our clients. When I say holistic approach, we really go in and look at the whole mosaic of everything. We have a legal diagnosis for our clients. That's part of the marketing. When I have a legal diagnosis in regard to what are all the legal issues that we need to address, and then have that interplay and give them the best strategy to go forward and counsel them, and then have a course of a plan of action, a strategy, and a prognosis as to where we want to go. That's part of it. And it's the same thing with your practice. You really have to set it up to continue on generationally if you want to be able to deliver those kind of values and that kind of level of service for your clients. And that's part of the marketing. Again, as we started out, I think we'll end with really the foundational stuff of one client at a time, do it on a professional level, care, believe in it. As John said, it's a 24/7 responsibility, get joy out of it, have the right mindset, have that trickle down, have that, mindset's everything. Have it trickle down. And, John's right. Your mindset to come into this profession should be a calling. I hope it is, because if you have that mindset, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's fantastic. I'm not going to take up any more time adding anything. Sarah, we're going to kick it over to you for any questions that you've got.
Yep. So we've got a couple of questions in the chat. Hey, everybody. So the first question was from David Paul. He would like to hear from Sam. Sam, could you share about how you communicate proactively your firm's view on work-life balance? That would be helpful.
Yeah, again, it goes back to what John and I talk about. It's really we're all in. We don't really you figure out what you need to make yourself happy, and I think we're not big fans of the term work-life balance. You figured out what you need to do is professionally. If you're a husband or a wife or a mother or whatever else, and I'm sure you'll figure out what you need to do to carry out those responsibilities as well. But when you come at Pond Hockey, we have clients to answer to, we have referral sources to answer to, and we're all in.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. The next question from another member, could you please juxtapose your metrics of marketing in true application with solo practitioners, largely because solos have to solely drill down into the actual practice of law on every case?
Yeah, I mean, I think the solos are really, I really think you need to have you need to have a really good, vibrant, and Aaron would probably be able to deal with this vibrant website. You really have to, that's something that you really need, I think, even as a solo. And then you really need to just kind of leverage your client data, your client base, in regard to a newsletter or even emails or lunches, client service, getting the word out, going and having a meal with other lawyers in regard to sending you work in that niche. That's kind of the grassroots that still exists. It's never going to go away. That you have to, and as you get more capital, if you want to go ahead and build that out, where you can then delegate and leverage human beings that believe in what you're doing, one or two or three, you'll have more time to practice law and then also market as well. But you need a team around you because, as you just said, Sarah, in the comment from the question, is that you're just one person practicing law. You really need to start building it out so you can leverage the other human beings around you to allow you to have that secure space, if that's what you want, to only be a solo.
I agree with all that, and I would add something. One of our real strengths at Amplify is that we do work with experienced lawyers who, develop a name. They are part of a very successful practice, and they decide to go solo. So one of this, in working, with, let's say, a 3-year strategic plan with them, one of the messages that I always try to get across is you obviously can't do everything. So we figure out the things that we want to put that investment, time, and money into, because it is so hard. You're running everything as a solo. And especially solos working within kind of ultra niche AOPs, there's so much of an opportunity to do what I said halfway through the conversation, which is about competing against folks with much more significant spend, because you have that authenticity of being the expert. And when things happen in the news cycle, or when things are happening or not happening with the legislature, we can get in and we can say, based on your years of experience and based on this new solo practice, this is what people should be doing and thinking about. Also, I want to say one thing about that when it comes to earned media. Please, everybody, understand that earned media that you get today and tomorrow recycles. That's one of the great things, is that so environmentally friendly earned media. I've written things that end up in my Google alerts 3 years later. I'm like, how did that happen? And then you basically walk it back and you see that something else brought it up again. So when you're an expert today, you can be an expert tomorrow and be an expert 5 years from now. That's why earned media is so important.
Wonderful. Thank you. The next question, I think, is for Aaron. Why is 20% a baseline objective of anticipated earnings for legal marketing? Why not 5 to 10% and gradually increase marketing budget considering the size of the firm?
Sure, that's great. And, every firm is different. And it's not like, if you don't invest that 20% of your anticipated income, you won't get some results. But the faucet needs to be turned on to a certain point for you to get the kind of results that you want. So as I said, I do lots of deep strategic work with all of our clients. If a client was approaching me today, and we deal with a very, very small percentage of firms that approach us because it's got to be a great cultural fit, a great fit in every single way. The spend has to match your anticipated and your desired goals. So I see a lot firms saying, I want to invest a little money and I want a 25x return. And it just doesn't work that way. So, it's honestly not that arbitrary a number. If you want to say it's like 17%, 22%, whatever, but around 20% is a number that tends to work to get clients with, fairly ambitious goals to be able to, get up to that level. Starting at 5%, it's going to take you a while to get where you need to go. And I think that you're going to find it to be more of a frustrating process than it needs to be. But again, every firm is different. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, make sure you have the operational, structure in to take care of those that spend in regard to when
Absolutely.
the case comes in. And then you really need to have the KPIs and look at it and have the data and say, what's the cost of a lead? What's the cost of converting it? How many are converting? What's the sign up rate? When you talk about converting, how fast are we getting on the phone with the client? Are people picking up? When you talk about pay per click, people are shopping. You've got to be immediately, you have to get on the phone with them. So operationally, you want to make sure that you have the operational end of it in, or otherwise you're going to be spending money and really not getting anything out of it. So you really have to sit down and have a plan and have a focus. You just can't do this willy-nilly. You have to be prepared.
Awesome. One other question. We have another question for Sam, sort of dovetailing off that. Can you tell us how big your marketing department is internally and externally? What do you have in-house and what is outsourced?
Most of our marketing is in-house at this point. So we have a rather robust marketing department. It's at this point, it's about 10, 11 folks. And we're planning on regard to our spend in the next 3 years, what we need. We have a whole operational view. We have an outside PR firm. We have an outside strategist that deals with legislation, politics. It also does some writing for us. We have some outside agencies that does a little bit more creative on the higher end, but we have our own film crew in as part of our marketing department. So we have a rather large in-house marketing department that is, engaged in their, and I meet with them monthly. They have weekly meetings. We're constantly having ideas. We're constantly looking at tying in the operations and the KPIs with what they're doing, what's working, what's not working. We have a very good relationship. We have a robust team that Google has designated to us. As you get larger, that'll happen. So yeah, it's very much part of what we're doing in regard to the operations of this.
Awesome. Thank you. Another follow-up question about the percentages. A member's asking, if you're saying to put 20% towards marketing, how do you divvy up the rest? Might be a question for Aaron.
How do you divvy up the last 80%? Is that the way that I'm interpreting the question? It depends on the firm. It depends on the firm. Honestly, I can't give a more detailed answer than that. What I can tell you is that when we work with prospects from day one, we're looking at all these kinds of questions together. Where the optimal spend is, what kind of things we're going to be spending on, what we want our areas of focus to be. So yeah, it just depends.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. And I think, just so Aaron and I are, I don't want to speak for Aaron, but we're throwing around terms that we just expect people to kind of understand what we're doing. I even saw something on what is PPC. So we're talking about 20% of your expenses. Okay, so let's assume that you have a $1 million revenue from fees. That's what you do a year, and you're then saying, well, I have $1 million. I have a 30% margin. I make $300,000 a year. I have $700,000 in expenses. Primarily, most firms are going to have the main cost to them is going to be their payroll, their staff.
Yep.
Secondly is probably the rent. And then third, maybe some advertising. Pond Hockey has now had marketing become the number one expense. The number two expense is our salaries and our people. We have over 200 people. Between the two of those, those two things add up to over 70%, 75% of our expenses. So you have to understand that if you have a $300,000 profit after all your expenses, and you may not be spending much on marketing, maybe you want to say, I want to take 15% of that, another $150,000, and then go and say, I'm going to invest and instead of taking it out as the business as free cash flow, I want to put that 150, I'll walk away with 150, pay my mortgage, have a car, feed myself. And then I've got 150 that I'm reinvesting in the firm. So now if I have 150, now I'm only having a margin of 15%. What more am I doing in regard to the marketing out of the 700,000? And you could be at 20% by then. But you have to understand your starting point as your financials, where you're at now. What are your financials showing you now? First of all, you're looking at your financials every month. Where are you at every month? How much cash do you have in hand? How much availability do you have to leverage and debt? All these other things that are really business 101. The best thing I do is I'm a litigator. It's the best thing I do. The second best thing I have to do is become a business person. Because I'm not going to be much of a litigator because I'm not going to get any cases unless I'm a really good business person.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. We've got two more questions, I think, before we close. So members asking thoughts on Sonic logos. Are they worth it?
So I honestly have, what's a Sonic logo?
Is that digital? Is it a digital logo? Is it digital? What's the Sonic logo? I'm also confused by it.
We can get some clarification on that. If you want, Carly, if you wouldn't mind dropping it in the chat so we can clarify. Music sound that is special to your firm. Like a jingle.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was like one of these new creation devices where it's made by Sonic or something like that. Sure. But when I think of brand, like there's so many component parts in your brand. And if a Sonic logo is going to be part of how you want to be remembered by people, then that's great. So, but it's part of a larger picture. So yeah, logos, Sonic logos, any logo is a part of how you want people to think about you and a part of how you want to be perceived. So if there is a Sonic logo that would be very unique and people would hear it and think of your firm, great.
Agreed. Yeah, I know one lawyer in the Midwest I know who is a very heavy TV advertiser. He does things in his ads that are beyond what most of us would think are rather outrageous. But I talked to him about it, and he said, top of mind, baby, top of mind. He goes, people laugh at me. People want to just come and strangle me. He goes, but when people get in a wreck, I'm the one they're thinking of in a 3-state area. So,
John, he's right. He's right. This is branding and is all about top of mind. And if a jingle is part of that, and it has people think about when they're in a wreck because of the jingle, it works.
Yeah.
We have talked about it. We haven't really focused on it, but we have thought about it and tested it.
Great. Awesome. We got one more question. Members asking, how will Google AI change the approach to search engine marketing?
This is a great question. I'm glad that we're ending on this one. It's first of all, it's developing like by the week. So we are so kind of intertwined with this, with our work. The most important thing, the one thing I want everybody to remember is that AI is going to be rewarding authenticity. What search will reward more and more as 2025 goes on and future years come is what Google and AI and any pieces of engines that are generating AI and looking for AI see as being authentic, which is why I say all the time, that's why like I'm sitting there and unlike Sam's son, I'm not doing things literally with a pen and paper, but I'm creating pieces from scratch with my own head because I know that when I'm writing things, on behalf of me with client links and quotes, on behalf of clients, whatever the case might be, that that's what authenticity is. And Google is getting better and better at delineating between this is artificially created. And by the way, I'm not saying that something artificially created is going to automatically be put into the bad basket by Google. Like we have conversations about this every day, and we read about this kind of stuff every day. However, artificial intelligence, this is a great way to think about it. Artificial intelligence is going to get better by the day at discerning what is artificial intelligence and will disfavor it.
Perfect. Thank you, Aaron. Also, somebody's wondering where the Amplify office is located.
We have people all over the world. Our office is located, we're based in Miami. I'm actually based in Montreal. Matthew Hughes, our chief brand officer, is based in South Florida. We've got people in Jersey. We've got clients all over the nation.
Wonderful. Well, that concludes the questions in the chat.
Sarah, thank you. And Aaron and Sam, this has just been spectacular. In fact, so spectacular, in my view, there should be a part 2. I'm serious. I will maybe send you all a copy of this, but I have 2 pages loaded with notes things that I've learned that I never heard of that I just got today. I mean, this has just been wonderful. So I can't thank you enough. Everybody who is attending, thank you for making the sacrifice to be here with us. And Sam and Aaron, parting comments, and then we'll turn it back to Sarah. Sam?
No, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. If I can be of help to anyone, please reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions, follow-up questions, and give you some advice or direction if you need it.
Same. It's always our pleasure. We love the FJA and everybody who's part of it. So never hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. On behalf of the FJA, thank you to everyone who was on the webinar today. Thank you to our speakers and our moderator. We will send an email out with the recording and also the contact information for Sam, Aaron, and John Romano in case you need it. Hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.